All right, so let's go back to our unit circle and try to like construct it and understand what's going on with it. So the unit circle is basically just showing you with a bunch of angles, what would their points be on the unit circle. So let's say I have the point pi over 6. I like this angle a lot. The x value right here is going to be our adjacent value, right? And the y value is going to be our opposite value. And we know from my little triangle, where's my little triangle? It's gone by now, but I know what it is. For my triangle, the adjacent is going to be, what is our adjacent? It's root 3 over 2. And our opposite is 1 over 2. Huh, wow. And let's say for pi over 4, this triangle right here, the y and the x value are going to be the same because our hypotenuse and the adjacent are the same. And for that, it's 1 over root 2, 1 over root 2. And for pi over 3, over here, it's the adjacent is going to be smaller, so it's going to be 1 over 2. And our opposite, our y value, is going to be root 3 over 2. So that's our first quadrant. So you can kind of see from here that for every angle, every point for every angle on this circle, the x value is the adjacent over 1, and the y value is the opposite over 1, where 1 is our hypotenuse, right? So every x value is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and every y value is the opposite over our hypotenuse, which means every single point of these is just the cosine of theta and the sine of theta, every single one. And you can just like triple check to make sure. That's what the points are corresponding to. Every xy, I mean. Okay, so we talked about values of these angles in the first quadrant, but now we want to talk about what about in the other 3 quadrants. So I'm just going to push these down and tap these out. So let's say we have a question asking you, I'm going to say what the cosine is of this angle. Please work with me. Cosine of this angle. What is the cosine of this angle over here, where it's 3 pi over 4? I bet you're like, well, I don't really know what the cosine of 3 pi over 4, that's crazy. But I'm telling you that you do. So, if you think about this angle, what is cosine of 3 pi over 4 really asking? What it's really saying is, okay, well, you know, this point right here, because we talked about this, is the cosine of theta and the sine of theta. So if you're trying to find the cosine of 3 pi over 4, this point right here is just the cosine of 3 pi over 4 and the sine of 3 pi over 4, right? And okay, we've been thinking of this as triangles, so let's just do a little triangle, right? And this angle is going to be pi over 4 because that's the difference. And we know from our original that this angle over here, this triangle right here, is the angle pi over 4. And we know what these 2 points are. That the only difference is, while this is on the positive x, this one is on the negative x. So the y's, they're both on positive y, so nothing changes with that. So this point right here is just the negative x from this point over here. So this cosine 3 pi over 4, sine 3 pi over 4 is just negative 1 over root 2, 1 over root 2. That's all it is. So the cosine is going to be your x value. So it's just negative root 1 over root 2. And that's your answer. And so whenever you have problems on different quadrants, all you have to do is just make sure you know if the x and y values are negative or what. So like if you had a problem over here, let's say this is pi over 4, this angle would be like 5 pi over 4, right? And here, the x is negative and the y is negative. And we know for pi over 4, it's the same. It would just be negative root 1 over 2, negative root 1 over 2, right? And over here, this angle is what, I think it's 7 pi over 4. Yeah. And this angle over here, where x is positive and y is negative. So it would be 1 over root 2, negative 1 over root 2. And so you can kind of do this with all of the different triangles. So you could do the same thing with the 60 triangle. Just make sure whenever you draw the triangles that you're connecting it to this x-axis down here, and you're not connecting it to the top because that's not the same triangle. But just make sure that you're taking the triangle over here and you're flipping it down this way, and you're flipping it down that way, and you're flipping it over here this way, and you're not just like rotating it weirdly. So always make sure to make your little bow tie. See, it's a little bow tie. We don't really want hourglasses. We're not cool with that. But yeah, so that's pretty much the basics. I can keep going. I don't know.